Okay, we're on Ayin Amid Beis. We had the following Shiloh. We know that Yisrael, if he fails to go ahead and be mishtatev to the Erev or the sheet of Mavois, there's a plan B, and that's to go ahead and be a Mavatel. So we said, what happens if the person died, and now he left over a Yorish? Can the Yorish be Mavatel or not? Shiloh was, since the Yorish could not make the Erev Shabbos, so he's not in the Pasha Bittul, or do we say the Yorish is Berei the Avua, he's the knee of the father, and the nail and what he could. Rav Nachman said he could, Shmuel said he couldn't. We're in the middle of asking questions on Rav Nachman. We're on Ayin Amid Beis. We're about 8 lines to the bottom. Ace of 8. Echad b'nei Chatzer shemes. You have a person in the Chatzer. One of the people of the Chatzer dies. V'yiniach v'shusa li'echem en hashuk, and he leaves over to one of the people in the street. Now it's not to a person in the Chatzer with him, but a person in the street. Mibod yom, while it's still daytime. Oyser, that would aser you have a reshus that was not mishtatef with the erev. That would aser the people from carrying into the Chatzer. Mishech hashecha, if the person dies when it became nightfall, then ein oyser. Then he would not go ahead and aser. Mishech hashecha, if he died, ein oyser. Why? Because since it was hutta for part of the day, right, it's not going to aser on them since it was mutta. V'yechem in hashuk shemes, one of the people from the shuk that died, and v'niach reshusay le'echem b'nei Chatzer. Now this person who died in the shuk, he had a house in the Chatzer, so he is a baal of the Chatzer, and he happened to be in the street. So and he left it over to somebody in the Chatzer. He left over property there to one of the people in the Chatzer. Miba yoim, if he died during the day, ein oiser. Why? Because the person can go ahead and make an erev. The person he bequeathed the property to, and it's still daytime. Mishech hashecha, however, if he dies once it was already Shabbos, oiser, because he wasn't mishtatif to the erev. Frei the Gemara, amai oiser. Why should it be oiser? Nevato. Let the person who's in the mavui now, who is his Yairish, again, the guy who was outside, owned a piece of property in the Chatzer. He left it over to a person in the Chatzer, so that person is the Yairish. Later, Rav Nachman, that a Yairish can be Mevatel. Why is this person now unable to be Mevatel? That you're saying it's Aser. On that, the Gemara answers, my Oiser, what does Oiser mean? Nami diktani at sheyibotel. It doesn't mean it's permanently. Why? Because again, a Yairish can be Mevatel. So meaning it's in a state if you can't carry until the Yairish is Mevatel. But the Yairish could be Mevatel, says Rav Nachman. That's Rav Nachman Shita. So Rav Nachman's held serve, a Yairish can be Mevatel, and the Gemara now will continue to attack that Shita of Rav Nachman, whether Yairish can be Mevatel or not. Okay, this gets a little convoluted. Toshma. Now we know, as a Hakdama, a Ger has no Yorshim. So anyone who's Machzik b'nichsei Hager, it becomes the owner of the property. Good? So let's say you had a Ger, and you were part of a situation where there was a chutzah between you, and he refused to rent to you. So in fact, you're stuck. What happens if he dies? So if he dies, it's great, right? Now you're the only balabas until someone comes along and is machzik in the property. Okay, so that's the information at hand that we need. That there's a ger, you and a ger, two guys, mano a mano. You can't carry in the chutzner. In this case, it's going to be a geirin, a threshing floor, where they used to have apartments built around. And you have two apartments, one of the ger and one of you. You're not able to go ahead and carry because the ger is not going to rent to you, and he dies. What? So with that situation, let's begin. Toshma Yisrael beger shalu megura, that they're living in a magura. They're living in a geirin. They're living in a geirin. Umeis ger miboyoin, and the ger he dies while what? before Shabbos begins. And now again, he has no heirs whatsoever. He has no one who lives there. Now listen to the lashon. Afal pi shehichsich Yisrael acher ben chasav oiser. It's mashma. The reason it's usher is because why? Is because someone came ahead and took possession, right? Someone came ahead and took Bailas over here.
Why isn't this guy first?
Oh, so a better question. Afal P is machzik, meaning even if someone's machzik, and if no one had been machzik, it also would be usher. If no one was machzik, it'd be mutter. He'd be the only game. Good, that's what you're asking. So the Gemara is going to ask that. So therefore, Afal P shehichsif Yisrael achem ben chasav, even though in other yid he took Bailas right when it became available. That's what it's usher. Mishechashecha, if the guy died once it got dark, even if an other Yisrael is not machzik, ain't usher. So the Gemara asks, Hagu for kasha. The price itself is fair. On one hand, you said the following: Midboy join, if he died while it was still day, afal pisha hichzik, even though another Jew took possession, v'loy miboy kiloy hichzik, and you don't need to tell me what. That's lashon afal pi, guys. Afal pi means not only if no one took, but even if someone took, it's usher. Fred the Gemara, what are you talking about? Adarabba, kiloy hichzik, if no one took possession, lo yasser, he's the only game in town. There's him and there's Hefker, right? There's no one to stop him. So what's the lashon? Afal pisha, a person's machzik, meaning even if a person's machzik, and kol shekain if a person's not machzik. If kol shekain, what kind of kol shekain? If no one else takes possession, he's the only game in town. It should be mutter. So the lashon doesn't make any sense. So Amrav Papa, Ema afal pisha lo yichzik. Say you're right. Even if a person's not machzik, right? If no one takes the jurisdiction of this property, it's still what would be. It would be asa. It still would be asa. Says the Gemara about afal pisha yichzik tani. It doesn't say afal pisha lo yichzik. It does say even if no one's machzik. It says even if a person's machzik. So it says this is the way you have to read it. Afal pisha lo yichzik mi bayoim. Even though another Jew wasn't machzik in the property while it was still Friday, only after it became dark, since he could have taken possession asa. In other words, it's very interesting. During the day, it's hefker. No one took possession yet. But since someone could have taken possession, we'll view it as two separate rishuyas. Even though the guy took possession only when it got dark. Since he could have taken possession while it was still day, it's going to be what? It's going to be asa. That's the svar of the Gemara. What about the second shot? If the guy died when it was nighttime, even if another person doesn't take possession, what says that makes no sense either. And certainly if he does take possession, guys, if he takes possession, it's finished, right? So kihichzik asa, when a yid takes possession, it's too late. It's asa. So I'm not papa the same teretz. Ema afal pisha hichzik. Say even what if he took possession? Says Gemara for her afal pisha hichzik katani. It says afal pisha lo hichzik. So the Gemara gives a similar teretz. Achikama afal pisha hichzik mishakasecha. Even though the yid took possession after the guy died the guy died at night. And the guy took possession at night. Since he couldn't have taken possession during the day because the guy was still alive, it's the opposite now. In other words, in the first case, no one took possession yet, but since someone could have taken possession, it's asa. In this case, someone takes possession at night, but since he couldn't have taken possession during the day because the guy was alive, therefore what? He doesn't asa. Ketani mias. What the bottom line is, what's the kasha? Ketani mias reisha. The reisha says, the Brisa says that the person who goes ahead and grabs the property of the guy, it's asa. It's when the guy died during the day. Am I asa? Why is it asa? Nivato. This guy should have a din of a Irish. So why is it also Shemim Vatal? The Gemara gives the same teretz. My Oysa Diktani, when it says it's Oysa, you know what it means? Ache Vatal. It's usher up until the time is Vatal. Yeah, this is Rav Nachman Shita that a Yerush can be Vatal. So when it says usher over here, it doesn't mean forever. It's usher up until the time that when spittle takes place. Once spittle takes place, then Then it remains in possession of the yid. Rabbi Yochanan gives two other truths. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Masnitza money." These last two brises, with the guy dying, and the brisa before with the Jew dying, right? That who's it according to? Is Beis Shammai. It's according to Beis Shammai the Amra. Ein bittul b'shus b'Shabbos. There's no bittul b'shus b'Shabbos. Did nan? Ne'emisai Mishnah said ne'emisai noisem b'shus. At which time does the person have to be mevatel? Beis Shammai oimin miba yoim. Person has to be mevatel while it's still day. Beis Hillel oimin b'shechachechach. He has to be mevatel when it's night. So Nachman, he holds like a Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel says you can be mevatel at night. Therefore, you're able to go ahead and be mevatel. No problem. Easy. The ones that sit mashba that you can't be mevatel go according to Beis Shammai. Nachman said a shita according to Beis Hillel. Amaula, my time of the Beis Hillel. What's the reason Beis Hillel says you can be mevatel when it's night, when it's already Shabbos? Nase koim eklachetzel yafis. Okay, there's a Gemara in Baba Metzia. You learned this with your kid in Elam Metzias. A person goes ahead and he takes off truma for his friend without the friend's knowledge. The friend comes along and says, "You should have taken the better ones." So we touch up that he's happy with what he did, and he's saying, "You could have done better." So we view it when he says you could have done better, that he was nichale when he took it off in the first place. It's like a shtickle, like retroactively, right? When he comes along and says you should have done better, it's as if he's saying, and what you did is good, but you could have done better. So that's the svara of Beis Hillel, right? That's the svara of Beis Hillel. When a person goes ahead and he is mevatel, right? When he's mevatel Shabbos, it's as if he wanted the chatzah to be batel before Shabbos. He's megala das with his bittul. Again, the erev takes place like kind of ben hashmashis by saying bit lunch. I forgot, and I was by mevatel Shabbos. It's like klachetzel yafis. Just like klachetzel yafis, he's been megala what his kavana was at the time of the truma being separated. So too over here, his bittul is megala that he would have been mevatel at the time the erev was made. That's the teretz of Ula. The problem is one of these brises is going. It says that the guy died. So what does that have to do with klachet itzli yafis? So Amar Abaya meis nachri b'Shabbos. If the nachri dies in Shabbos, and that gave the yid the right to go ahead and be mevatel, my klachet itzli yafis sikka. How could you say, right? Since when the guy was alive at the time, Erev Shabbos, guys, he was alive. You can't possibly say that it was in my jurisdiction to be mevatel. Bishlema, if it was in the hands of a yid, I could say, had I known, I would have been mevatel. Over here, it's leishayach. So that can't be the svara of Beis Hillel of klachet itzli yafis. So the Gemara offers another pshat. Elahocha b'hakam iflaki. What's the machlokas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel? As how you view bittul. Guys, let's go outside. You can view bittul as I'm misalik myself. I just leave. In other words, I'm being for temporary. I'm being mafker. In other words, just leave me out of this. I'm walking away from rishus. I have nothing to do with it. So Menela, there is no issue, no Shabbosdik issue. You're not over on any possible issa, the Rabbanon. There's nothing. I'm being misalik. I'm removing myself. There's another way to view bittul. It's a transaction. You're going ahead, taking what's yours and giving it to the other person. In other words, these guys are going to own my property, correct? Because they have to own my property to be part of the Erev. If that's the case, you have a problem. A person's not allowed to do business on Shabbos. Beis Shammai views it as the latter. He views what? The bittul of rishus as a business transaction. Therefore, since you can't do a business transaction on Shabbos, the bittul must take place on Friday. Whereas the Beis Hillel says, no, it's not a business transaction. It's just, I'm not nothing to do with this. That can be on Shabbos as well, and therefore, Beis Hillel holds you can be mevatel on Shabbos. Ela b'hokem miflagi. The Beis Shammai savar bittul rishus mikna rishusahu. Being bittul rishus is being makne a rishus. Being again mevatel rishus is transferring ownership of a rishus. Umikna rishus of Shabbos asa, and doing transactions on Shabbos is asa. I think it's because you may come to write it down if I remember correctly from Milton Shabbos. Beis Hillel says, there's no business here whatsoever. I'm simply going ahead and saying, I have nothing to do with this. And therefore it's permitted on Shabbos, that's the svara, but it has nothing to do with klach etzel yafis. Klach etzel yafis would not go ahead and be a svara where the guy went ahead and died. Okay, we've been discussing Erev Chatzeros, and something called Shitufei Muvois. A mavoi is, again, as we all know, is the area, an alleyway kind of, between at least two chatzeros that open up into it. So just as you can't carry from your house into a chatzer, you can't carry from a chatzer to a mavoi unless you do some type of action. The action from a bias to a chatzer is called erev chatzeros. The same action is from a chatzer to a mavoi is called shitufei muvois. You would basically take mazon shtei sudos, put it in one of the chatzerim, and then you'd all have a right in the mavoi. Let's say people previously had an ownership in something. In other words, they had a shituf already. Can they be somich on that shituf, on that partnership, to be considered partners in the mavoi without making a new one? That's the shaila at hand. In other words, I have a pre-existing partnership. Can that pre-existing partnership preempt the need to go ahead and make a new partnership to be shituf in the mavos? That's the shayla here. Says the Mishnah, Balabayas shehi shoitif l'shcheinov. Balabayas, he's in one chatzar. He has people in two other chatzerim, and with these, he's a shutif l'zebiyayin u'lezebiyayin. So in other words, let's say you have 3 chatzerim, 4 chatzerim. He's a partner in them with wine. He does not have to make an erev. In other words, that shituf that he has is enough to go ahead and be considered as if the meshutaf in the mav is already. That's enough that they're considered meshutaf in the mav is already. However, lezeh b'yayin ulezeh b'shemen, right? He has a shituf with this one with yayin and this one with shemen, this one with oil and this one with wine. Tzrichel arev. Then he'd have to make an erev, even though he has a shutfis. Since one is shemen and one is wine, he'd have to make a new erev. We're going to see, fellas, this has to do with the fact of how many kalim they're in. Generally, yayin b'yayin could be in the same kli. Yayin and shemen cannot be in the same kli. If Shimon Aimer echad zeh v'echad zeh, and it's tzrichel arev, you don't have to go ahead and make an erev, even if you have, whether it's a shituf in wine or whether it's a shituf in wine and shemen, you don't have to make a new erev. That would preempt the need for shituf mavois. Okay, let's see a little bit what's going on over here. Amarav, when it says you had a shituf in wine, fellas, it's ubikli echad. It's speaking when it's in one kli. So we have a kli, and there's wine in the kli, and we're shutfin in that. In that case, we are going to be considered what? Shituf in the mavois. Says Rashi, Amarav ubikli echad. Shekulan hayu shutfasim b'kli echad. All of them are partners in one kli. Aval b'shnei kelim loy. V'yafagav damina Beis Hillel perak mishrei tziyod. Erev hanasam b'shnei kelim kasha. An erev that's in 2 kelim is kasha. Hasam hu d'meikar l'shem erev gavu. You collected it for that. Umilyu l'mana v'yaser. You filled it up and you had extra. Aval hacha d'lav l'shem shitafu b'kli echad im b'kli kelim. So Rashi's asking a question, fellas. We had earlier in the Masechta, Beis Hillel said if it's in 2 kelim, it's okay. So why over here is 2 kelim not okay? So Rashi's answering, there, the reason you put in 2 kelim, you collected for an erev and you had too much. So I was forced to use another kli. Then you're forced to use another kli and you collected it for an erev, it works. Over here, it was in a kli, it had nothing to do with erev. It had to do with a previous business transaction that that we made. And the Mela there, 2 kalim yes, 1 keli not. 1 keli yes, 2 kalim not. That's a very nice svara. Amarava, Dekanami, Amishnas Meduyik as well, that it's speaking in one kli. Diktani, the second case, Lezeb Yain or Lezeb Shemen, with this one in wine and this one in oil, Tzrichim Arev. Now, obviously, when it's wine and oil, it's in two separate kalim. So what do you see? That 2 kalim don't work. Guys, Yain v'Shemen, v'hu adin Yain b'Yain won't work, according to this teretz. Right? According to this, it's not only Yain v'Shemen, it's Yain v'Yain if it's in 2 kalim. So really, you could ask, why do you have to tell me a case of Yain v'Shemen? Why don't you just tell me a case of Yain and make it fill between 1 kli and 2 kalim? Because as we're going to see, there's somebody who argues in that. Right? Shimon argues in that. Okay, that's the reason. Very good if you're going to say the Reisha speaking 1 kli, the Yain was in the same kli, and the Seifa with the wine and the oil were 2 kalim. Shapir, you have a good shot, a good distinction. El Reisha b'shnei kalim, the Seifa b'shnei kalim, Mali Yain v'Yain, Mali Yain v'Shemen. There should be no chilik, correct? Again, if you fellas, there's no special din in Yayin to make the shituf. It has to be that I'm shutfing together in 1 kli. I'm a shutif. I'm a shutif in this business transaction. I'm a shutif in this mavoy. So why shouldn't it work? What by Yayin v'Shem and by 2 kalim? Why shouldn't it work? Haste is that what? Then we're going to see that it can't be mishtah. It can't bring it together. You can't be considered partners. Whereas 1 kli, you can be considered partners. Amoy Abaye, Yain v'Yain royal Arif, Yain v'Shemen ain't royal Arif. I don't understand your svara. Says Abaye, you have no raya. Since Yain v'Yain you can mix together, I would say even if it's in 2 kalim, you're considered partners. Masha Enkin, Yain v'Shemen, since intrinsically you can't throw them back into each other, therefore what it's considered separate. However, Reb Shimon said, Echad zeh v'Echad zeh ain't tzrichim l'orev. Whether it's this one or that one, you don't have to make an erev. In other words, even Yain v'Shemen, so Hastus, according to Reb Shimon, even 2 kalim, you could make an erev. Or in this case, we call it a sheet of a voice. We're calling it an erev, but it really means a sheet of a voice. Fred Gemara, v'afilu l'zeh Yain l'zeh Shemen. So Amar Rabba, hacham ayaskinon. In other words, we don't understand how Reb Shimon possibly could hold, right, that Yain v'Shemen, you can't mix them together. If you can't mix them together, they're not partners. Guys, look at me. There's a difference between a business partnership and the partnership that's required for sheet of mavos. The partnership that's required for sheet of mavos is I have to be mixed together. Ma'are, the lashon of mixture. In other words, I have to, just like I have to own the chutzner, I have to own the mavoi. The only way to own the mavoi if it's together. Good? Fred the Gemara, how could Reb Shimon possibly hold Yain v'Shemen should be the type of partnership that would be enough to not require a shituf in the mavoi? We're all moida the shituf of the mavoi, it has to be intermingled. Like the chutzner, right? It has to be intermingled. We all own one house, we all own the chutzner. Here also, we all own the wine, we all own the mavoi. If it's Yain v'Shemen, there's no way to get, even though you're partners in that, that's a business partnership. There's no way to get beyond that to say it should be enough of a partnership that we're considered ma'urav in the mavoi, since ma'urav over here it doesn't exist because Yain and Shemen don't mix. That's the kasha of the Gemara. That's the kasha of the Gemara. Guys, you got it? That's the kasha of the Gemara. Your partners, your business partners, great. Business partners doesn't make you ownership in the mavoi. Owning something together, mixed together, makes you something. Yain v'Shemen don't mix. So that's the Gemara. It says, "Vafilu Yain v'Shemen Amarabba Hacham Ayaskinan." We're not speaking about one sheet of mavois. We're speaking about 2 sheet of mavois. I didn't download it, guys. We had this case before. you're a chatzar, there's a mavoi, and there's other chatzerim. What you want to know is the middle chatzar connected to the other chatzerim. In other words, can they all carry into the mavoi because of the ownership of the middle guy? If they have rights with the middle guy, they can carry in. If they're separate from the middle guy, they can't. What are we speaking about? The middle guy has ownership of yayin with the chatzar on the right, with the mavoi on the right. The middle guy, he has ownership in shemen, partnership with the guys on the left. So you're right. You're not discussing mixing two together. You're discussing two separate shitufli muvois. And therefore,
is this like the three circles where
absolutely. It's exactly like that. Steve, excellent. It's exactly like that. But almost exactly like that. But again, so it's geschmack. So in other words, based upon my explanation, you're right. I don't require the shemen and the wine to get mixed together because I have an ownership with the guys on my right in wine. I have ownership with the guys on my left in oil. Great. Now, since we all have ownership, that ownership, and it's all mixed together, is enough to acquire this mavoi on the left and this mavoi on the right. Good. So that's what the Gemara is discussing. Says the Gemara, we're discussing a chatzah between two mavois. Rav Shimon Tamei, who goes according to Steve Geller. That none. Rav Shimon, this case of having a chatzah and on the two sides having two mavois and other chatzerim is speaking l'mad davidayin. L'shalish chatzeros to three chatzeros hapsuchas ulezu that are all open to each other. Upsuchas l'shus arabim. Eruv v'shtayim achitzayim emtzai. If we got 1, 2, and 3. If one makes an eruv with 2 and 3 makes an eruv with 2, himu terasimahem, v'hemu terasima. 1 can go to 2, 2 to go to 3, but 1 can't go to 3, and 3 can't go to 1. So over here, the same thing. We're saying that the guy in the chutzah, he can go to the left, the guy in the other chutzah can go to the right, but right and left can't go together. I'm going to buy me, dummy. You're going ahead and you're mixing up two mishnayos. Right. Over here, Hassam, by the what do you say, Ketani? Hachitzonius asuros. You said they're usher on each other. Hasa Ketani ain't tzarichin la'arav klal. They said you don't have to make an erev, which is mashma that what? That it's good. Over there, 1 and 3 are not permitted. Over here, it's mashma, the two chatzerim on the outside can carry with each other. The Gemara says, no, it doesn't mean they can't carry. My ain't tzarichin la'erev, it means shechenim bahadei balabayas. The shechenim with the middle guy, meaning the two outside guys with the middle guy don't have to make a shituf because he has a piece of the action with oil on the left. He has a piece of action with wine on the right. But the other two outside chatzerim, they would have to make an erev with each other. So that's the opinion. That's the opinion of Rabbi. That's the way Rabbi learns pshat in Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says that you can make a sheet of mavois with shemen and the sheet of mavois with yayin. It does not mean together; it means separate. Okay. Rabbi Yosef says another pshat in Reb Shimon. It's not speaking about two mavois like we saw it. This guy's speaking about one. What's akasha? If it's speaking about one, you can't mix shemen v'yayin. We're on ayin aleph on the base. Maybe turn the page. So now, if you can't mix the shemen v'yayin, it's a business. So it's a business ownership. It can't be a sheet of mavois. Reb Shimon, Rabbanon, plukta the Rabbi Yochanan Menuri, Rabbanon Kniflegi. Guys, outside. If I could somehow view the shemen and the yayin as one, could I make a sheet of mavois? Right? What's stopping me? The fact that they don't mix together shows we don't have a partnership, physical partnership in an entity. That's why it has to be yayin. So the kasha was How, if you have shemen and yayin, how could Rav Shimon possibly hold that that's good for shita mavois? You own a piece of action together in the shemen, you own a piece of action together in the yayin, but they can't come together to be a physical entity to make us partners in the mavoy. What happens if I can create a scenario where we'll view yayin and shemen as one entity? Then we would be able to use it for sheet of mavois, because then it's not only a business transaction. Then, in fact, we have dual ownership of his arvus. We had this earlier in the Masechta. Here's the Mishnah. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yosef Amar, Rabbi Shimon Rabbanan beplukted the Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri of Rabbanan Kamiflagi. They're arguing the machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Rabbanan. In this machlokas between the two of them, we're going to see that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds that shemen and wine are one entity. So if shemen and wine are an entity, Rabbi Shimon can hold like him, and therefore you can be mishtatev. You don't have to make a new erev. Shenkin the Chacham the Tanakama holds like the Rabbanan. Who are they? None. We learned this Mishnah in Masechta Shabbos. Shemen shetzaf al gabe yayin. You have shemen floating on top of yayin, and pashtus, it's the truma. What do we know about truma? If a full yom touches the truma, since he's a sheni, and it can be metama truma to a level of a shlishi, so apparently it would all be tamei, right? Guys, that's what we're discussing. The inyan tumah v'tayra, a full yom is a sheni. If he touches truma, he makes it a shlishi. So I have in a barrel, I have truma of oil and truma of yayin. We all know oil floats to the top. So floating on top of the wine is a film of shemen. Comes along with tful yoim, and v'naga tful yoim b'shemen. He touches the shemen. It's tamei. Question: does he passel also what? Does he passel also the yayin? Guys, look at me. If you view it as disconnected, so the shemen on top is a shlishi cannot be mitama truma, so the wine will be tahar. If you view it as not connected, clearly the shemen will be tamei because the tful yom was a sheni, a secondary level to tama, will be mitama the shemen. But the shemen, if it's not connected to the wine, is only touching the wine. If it's only touching the wine does not become tamei. But if you view them as connected as one, when you touch the shemen, you also touch the wine, and therefore the wine also would be tamei, because they're mechubarim, they're connected, they're not separate. So what we're doing, let's zustelling, fellas, we're zustelling the din of tumah v'tayra to the din of shitufe muvois. Says Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer, Shneim kiburim zelazeh. They're both connected. So outside, guys, outside. The Rabbanon did not allow you to go ahead and make a sheet of muvois from shemen and yayin. Why? Because even if you put them in the same kli, they're separate entities. They're not considered connected. So therefore, if they're not connected, it's not Urev. There's no partnership over here. The Rabbanon who hold that you can't hold like the Rabbanon of the Tful Yoim, that the shemen cannot be metama the yayin. Rabbi Yochanan and Nuri, on the other hand, holds shemen v'yayin as one entity. So therefore, Rabbi Shimon, who holds your partnership, we need one entity. We need a tarubis of something together, a physical partnership rather than a business partnership. Just like Rabbi Yochanan and Nuri holds the shemen and yayin are tamei because they're one thing. Hu adin le'inyan sheet of mavois. It's one thing, which is what I needed to allow me to not make a sheet of mavois because I had a partnership in the shemen and yayin. So therefore, that's what the Gemara says. Rabbanan who hold that shemen and yayin don't work. Rabbanan, they hold like the Rabbanan that only the oil is tamei and not the yayin. Reb Shimon who says no, they're considered mixed together. And in fact, it is a good sheet of mavois. Rabbi Yochanan Nuri, Tanya. So he holds like Rabbi Yochanan Nuri. Guys, good? Tanya. Rabbi Eliezer ben Tadai Omer, Echad Zeh, the Echad Zeh, he says, in both cases of our Mishnah, in the case where you both had wine, and the second case where you had wine and oil, both cases of our Mishnah, Echad Zeh, Echad Zeh, Tzrichim L'Arev. So he argues. So guys, we have three shittas. Let's go. Outside. The question at hand, does a pre-existing partnership preclude my need to make a sheet of mavois? Says the Tanakama, yayin b'yayin, you don't have to. Yayin b'shemen, you do have to. Says Rabbi Shimon, not only yayin b'yayin don't you have to, afilu yayin b'shemen you don't have to. Put it across the board. Rabbi Eliezer ben Tadai, a third shita, nothing works. He argues in the Mishnah, nothing works. Yayin b'yayin, not only doesn't yayin b'shemen work, but yayin b'yayin doesn't work. Yayin b'yayin doesn't work. You know why? Because even yayin b'yayin, it's only a business partnership. It's not the entity together that's required when you make a shituf together. When you buy, when you combine together as one, it remains a business partnership, as we'll see. Rabbi Eliezer Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer Tadai, Echad Zeh, whether it's yayin b'yayin, Echad Zeh, whether it's yayin and shemen, Tzrichim L'Arev, you need a separate shituf mavois aside from your partnership in the wine. V'afilu l'zeh b'yayin, right? Now, Amar Rabba, Zeh ba b'ligoynoi, if this guy comes with his wine in a pitcher, v'shafach, and throws in a barrel, v'zeh ba b'ligoynoi v'shafach, and this comes with his wine and throws it in the barrel, kuliyam pligi, the have eruv. This is an eruv that you do not need shituf mavois for. That would work. Ki pligi, where's the machlokes Rabbi Eliezer ben Tadai and everybody else? Is kegoin shelaku chovia shel yayim b'shutafos. You bought a barrel of wine b'shutfos. Rabbi Eliezer ben Tadai sava ein breira. Guys, this is not breira. This is not the retroactive breira. Breira means that we don't say that you own this wine. We say that you both own money. It's still a business deal. It's not that you have that physical. If you buy a barrel of wine, it's not that you have a taruvus of wine together to create the mixture. It merely simply means you own 50. Let's say it's $100. You own $50. You own $50. The barrel's worth $100. It's very cheap wine. You go ahead and you own 50 and you own 50. But that's money. That's not an eruv. If you go ahead, physically take wine, throw it in a barrel, I physically created an eruv with my wine. Over here, if I bought it, I just simply own it. Look at Rashi. Rashi explains beautifully. 3 lines down. Each one. Till the barrel's full. Even if they didn't do it initially for the sheet of mavois. They did it initially to be partners, business partners. Nonetheless, Saimchim alav, you'll be able to use this for a shituf. Shari hevi kolechad yayin. Each one brought wine. So now the wine's mixed together. And therefore, since the wine's mixed together, it's all ours. So now the mavoi becomes all ours. Avalaku chavias yayin. If you purchase a barrel, b'shutafos, Svir leile ben Tadai, Rabbi Eliezer ben Tadai holds, ein breira. What does that mean? V'havile kimi shenishtatfu b'mois. They both were partners in money. Shlei huvru yayin l'chalecha v'yechad. We don't know who owns which wine, but it's not retroactive breira. Look at Tosfos, guys. Rabbi Eliezer ben Tadai, the second Tosfos on the page. Ein breira. Ein zeh ke'ein breiris t'bechol duchta. It's not like the breiris all over, where we say it retroactively shows what you wanted. We had in this Masechta. I put an eruv to the left and eruv to the right, and when I decide which one I want, that's the direction that Bein Hashmashas I was koina. That's Brera, retroactive clarification. There's no retroactive over here. There's just which is which. We don't know. There's just money. There's money. We own some wine, but there's no togetherness in the wine. It appears bekuntris. So therefore, back in the Gemara, very geschmack. Rabbi Eliezer ben Tadai is the third shita. Nothing works. Why doesn't yayin work? Because basically it doesn't create the taruvis we need for the, I'll use the word friendship, partnership. It's only a business deal. Yeah, even yayin b'yayin is only a business deal if you buy the barrel of wine together. One more time. Tanya Rozman Talyome. Echad zeh, whether you buy wine and wine. V'echad zeh, whether wine and oil. Tzrichin la'arev. You're going to have to make a separate sheet of voice because that partnership is not going to work. Why? V'afilu zeh b'yayin l'zeh b'yayin. Amarabba, it depends. If they both physically use wine, they don't, they take the wine and they're using their wine to create the partnership. Even as she said, if it wasn't for the purpose of the sheet of voice, it would work. Kuliyamali pliga works. Tavi erev. Meaning kuliyama works that you do not have to make a separate erev. Ki pligi, when's the machlokes? Kidoin shalachu chavia shel yayin b'shutafos. They buy a barrel together. What does ein brera mean? Meaning it's not so clear which wine that's yours, which wine is yours, that we're going to say it's a taruvis to create a sheet of mavois. You have your value and you have your value. Rabbanan Sabri know, Rabbanan say yesh brera, and Rabbanan say they hold yesh brera. Okay, so therefore, in conclusion, we have a few shitas over here. We have Rabbi Shimon saying you could even make a sheet of mavois with wine and oil. The first opinion of Rabbi is it doesn't mean in one mavoi, it means two separate mavoyim. So I'm making one with the shemen and one with the wine and one with the shemen, right? Therefore, they're not mixed together. He said a second opinion. Even if they're mixed together, it would work because Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, "Le'inyan tful yoim, if you touch the oil, it's like you touch the wine. It's considered one entity. And therefore, it would work." We have a third opinion now that argues totally on the previous two. Rabbi Eliezer ben Tadai, and he says nothing works except in one scenario. If you were mishtatev with wine together, you poured the wine in. But if you didn't put the wine in together, you just bought wine, it would be considered that you're not a chuvra, which is wine. It would be more of a business deal. You'd have a partnership, but it's not the partnership to create this taruvis. The next pshat is involved to the extent that we're going to have to hold off on it because I won't be able to finish it tonight. And you need to be fresh in mind for it. So Be'ez Hashem, we'll begin this tomorrow. I thank you all for listening.
Good, thank you.